Hi everybody, this is Kevin Flowers. I'm a senior reporter of the Erie Times News. We're here in the historic Warner Theater with Casey Wells, the executive director of Erie Events, and we're going to talk about a lot of different things going on with Erie Events. If you have questions, Sarah Grabsky, our online reporter, is here to kind of field that stuff. And Casey, let's start off. I wrote about the Warner a little bit the last last week or so. Let's start off on talking about what's going on with the final phase of the restoration project.
Well, the Department of General Services provided us with a delegation agreement that essentially remobilizes the project. It outlines the terms and conditions of the project, allows us to hire the design team, engineering team, commissioning agent, as well as construction manager locally to make those decisions, and the state component will be just funding for construction. Essentially, they're paying. Their money will go to hard costs. Our money will cover the soft costs. We want to thank the Wolf administration for greenlighting this to get this final phase completed. It's been a long, long time, Kevin. I kid with people and say it was my first project ever. It started in the 90s. I had hair and it was black. So it's very gratifying to have it about to commence. I should say it has commenced with the delegation agreement, and it will deliver a wonderful facility to our community, one that we deserve, and truly transform a historic movie house into a modern performing arts center without losing the historical integrity and all the memories from people in our community.
Well, and to explain, a delegation agreement, you've explained what it is, and it gives you the opportunity to basically run the project, but this isn't something that happens all the time with DGS, and you guys have done this before, correct?
Yes, we have, and they want to be sure that the organization that they delegate these rights and responsibilities to have the capacity to execute the project and manage the project, and we have had that history and have that experience, and we have a great staff. It's certainly a number of us that need to do that. With the delegation agreement, there's all sorts of rules and regulations and parameters and procurement requirements, and we need to follow those rules, and a lot of reporting necessary, but we're thrilled to have that local control, day-to-day control. We think it will provide for our community a much more cost-efficient and effective project.
We've already got one question, Kevin.
Okay, go ahead.
Somebody, kind of piggybacking off of that, somebody said, why don't we have more concerts at the Warner Theater right now, kind of as it is?
Well, the biggest challenge of concerts in this market is the market itself, and I don't want to be Debbie Downer, but these artists go on tour and they go to communities and markets that provide them the greatest opportunity to make money. And we have 250, 270, 280,000 people in the county. I like to think our market goes about 60 miles, which takes us up to about 600,000 people. But when they look at the demographics, they look at the income, they look at past performance, all of those considerations are in, and we're competing with the rest of the world to get these shows. And there's nothing that will bring more shows to this community than support for those that we have. And it's a challenge. Most communities have people living all around them, 360-degree radius. Well, we have a lake that's wonderful, and I wouldn't trade it for the world, but there's no one living north of the Bayfront Parkway. And when you look at how many people are there in that series of concentric circles, there's no one living, and the fish can't buy tickets. So, I don't mean to be glib about it or negative about the Erie, but that's the biggest challenge. We have great facilities. You talk to promoters, they like the facilities, they like our staff, but what is the strength of the market to buy the tickets necessary to make things work? The iconic artists will sell anywhere, including Erie, but in that instance, they're going to go to a venue that seats 20,000 people, not 7. You do the math, you can make 3 times as much money as you can in a 20,000 seat building than you can in a 7,000 seat building. We do everything we can to bring events into our facilities, but I would just say to the community, help us help you by doing what you can to support events that we do have. I know the questioner mentioned the Warner Theater specifically. Part of the problem with us getting shows here, and particularly Broadway shows, is that we physically cannot fit them. Again, this is a movie house that has a load-in door that's basically a double man door. Many of the major touring Broadway shows that would play in Erie physically cannot fit into this stage. It's very narrow and lacks depth. It's only 31 feet, doesn't have loading docks, and fortunately the final phase of the restoration and expansion of this theater, and when I say expansion, it's primarily backstage and providing all of that necessary support, loading docks, and infrastructure to accommodate these larger touring shows. So it's safe to say it's confirmed by many promoters that when we get this Warner done, we will see more events in the theater than ever before. Longer stays for Broadway, much more marquee events, because many of them that are out there and have been out there, like Phantom and Les Mis and Wicked, and there's many others that just physically will not fit into this room.
And it would be safe to say that stage expansion is one of the largest components of this final phase, then, or one of the most important components of this final phase.
Essentially, all of the work that will be completed in the final phase will be behind that curtain. And a final comment about the Warner and concerts. Part of our program includes updating lighting and sound here, which will actually reduce the costs for promoters to produce events here, because we will have, a wonderful sound system and a wonderful lighting system, so they would not have to go out and rent those components, adding to the cost of producing events here. So we expect to do much better with concerts in the Warner Theater, particularly Broadway, but concerts as well. And we're working very hard to that end and already talking about what types of events will make sense now that we've got this final phase underway.
Okay, Casey, what's the breakdown of the funding for this project? I mean, we've reported on that, but if you can explain it to people in terms of the state funding, the money that's been raised privately.
Yeah, actually, we've raised, gosh, it's been so long, Kevin, several $1 million locally through the Warner Theater Preservation Trust fund drive. We have spent some of those dollars on previous phases. If you recall, for those that are watching and listening, we put a new roof on, cleaned and repainted all the decorative surfaces. We integrated the former building at the corner on 8th and French into the theater, provided additional restrooms as well as additional concessions, points of sale. We also reseated the theater, brought it up to improved our ability to accommodate people with disabilities, and the final phase is basically all of the infrastructure behind the stage. We have over $2 million remaining from the Warner Trust, and I just want to thank everybody out there for their patience. It has been glacially slow, and I accept that. Unfortunately, a lot of those things we couldn't control because we didn't own the land behind the theater, which subsequently and recently, a year or so ago, was acquired by the authority. But we're looking there at about $15 million of dollars from the state. We'll couple those together. We will be able to get the program done and, again, provide a state-of-the-art performing arts center to northwestern Pennsylvania.
We've got a commenter who says, how will closing the Warner affect the Erie Philharmonic performance schedule, and do you have some sort of idea of the renovation timeline?
I can say that I've been planning to close this theater for a number of years, and it actually has hurt us because we've turned away some bookings with anticipation of this happening. And of course, these events get scheduled often years in advance, so you have to block out those dates because we got to get this done as soon as we can. But essentially, it won't affect the Philharmonic or the Broadway series any more than they will basically end a season sooner and begin the following season later. We look to close the theater in April through October. We've got to confer with our architects, but basically a 6 or 7 month closure. But a lot of work will happen prior to that closure. We will be putting in the new stage house box behind the facility, basically building that new building, if you will, and kind of build it and cantilever it over the existing stage. And then when we close, that building will already be there. We take down the back wall so this lovely theater is never exposed to the elements. We'll be closed about 7 months, but it'll take a year probably in advance of that, if not, I'm guessing about an 18-month project. I really hesitate to provide a schedule until we get our contractor or construction manager and our design team on board to set that schedule. You know, there's a lot of procurement lead times.
What do you think realistically is the soonest you could get started?
I think we'll be getting started with design here in the next month.
Right.
But as far as construction in the ground, you know, this has been since the 90s, and I've said so many times that it's going to be this and that. I can say that it will be no later, with the grand opening, no later than November of 2020. Okay. We're going to try to make it sooner than that. To me, that's probably the most likely scenario, but I just hate to speculate because I've just been wrong too many times.
And the other phases that were done, if you could explain some of the other work. I mean, we're sitting in these seats, which was involved in part of the restoration that happened before. What was some of the work that were done in the other phases of this project?
Well, the roof was one of the roof and the interior decorative surfaces was all done. John Canning Studios did
Right.
that to paint it, clean it, replicate it. Of course, we did some life safety improvements during that phase. Second phase, you know, putting the additional restrooms in, particularly quadrupling the number of accommodations for ladies. Mm-hmm. Of course, people, you know, in 1931 when this facility was built, it was a movie house, and you kind of used the facilities when nature called. Now you have 2,200 people at intermission all going in the same direction, so we were woefully inadequate relative mm-hmm. to restroom fixtures, and that was a phase, and I think the architects did an outstanding job of integrating, you know, an old building with banking purposes and making it part of this with the look, the feel of the Warner, and I commend them for that. Dan Coffey and Associates out of Chicago was the designer and architect, theater architect of record. We are going to retain him for the final phase. He's done the Chicago Theater in Chicago, the Oriental, the Palace. He has a wonderful resume, great experience, fabulous guy.
And again, the familiarity with this particular
And the
facility.
familiarity with this, and he's already done some, you know, schematic design, and we have a sense as to what it's going to look like and how it's going to lay out backstage. And it's, you know, I'm gonna just offer that, you know, I think it's safe to say that we got the convention center right. I think it's a dynamic and iconic piece of architecture, both from an aesthetic and a functional and programming standpoint. I think, you know, the hotels are first class, evidenced by their very high rankings in their respective brands. I think it's safe to say that the Erie Insurance Arena came out like holy smokes, and I keep on hearing people, I can't believe this is Erie. I'm just going to tell everyone, when we get this theater done, it is going to be equally outstanding, and it's important that, you know, we do it right. It's going to stand the test of time. It's been iconic. It's been here since 1931. We got to finish this right. We've got to spend all of the necessary dollars to get it right and not settle for anything less. I think, you know, my board of directors has always been so supportive of let's get this right, and let's not cut, and then forever be wounded by those decisions by not coming up with that last X amount of dollars to just get it right. And people in northwestern Pennsylvania deserve that. Our tax dollars go to Harrisburg, and we should not be bashful about asking for those tax dollars to come back. And I'll remind everybody that, you know, all of the facilities that we have here, the operations, none of which are supported by real estate or local tax dollars. I mean, it's all coming from, we're supported by the bed tax from visitors our community, and no local taxes are coming to us. And that's a great thing. We try to create the greatest amount of economic impact that we can in this community, improve the quality of life, and try to manage our properties responsibly for the community benefit.
Another question?
Well, yeah, we've got somebody who was wondering how you decide on the variety for concerts, like rock, country, pop.
Well, the market decides on that. I mean, basically, we take any and all comers. The only time that I would refuse a show is if we have a similar type event within a time period. In other words, we wouldn't want to put two country concerts on top of one another, because Erie's a tough market, like I mentioned earlier. And you don't want to have two country concerts, for instance, too close together, because they'll just cannibalize one another and both be more likely to not be successful. So we want to provide some but, you know, if someone wants to bring us a show, our arms are wide open, and I cannot think of any time where we said we don't want it. We want and attract and market to everything. It's You know, we have a very diverse community. You know, some people like pro wrestling, some people like Disney on Ice, some people like both. But I think it's important to us to try to provide entertainment opportunities for all citizens and visitors to the region. And we decide we take everything we can.
Another question that just came in, this is not you, but obviously Best Summer Night was just canceled on Friday, and Dierks Bentley was canceled. Was that was Erie Events, was it?
It was, and,
okay.
And we did provide an assist for Best Summer Night. You know, worked
okay.
with John DeMarco and the Presque Isle Partnership for the first the two shows that previously occurred. You know, we play a role in helping them from a production standpoint, and somewhat of a booking standpoint, just to help them, lending our experience and our staff to assist in areas where they're needed.
So the question is, how do you?
Yeah, but Best Summer Night, you know, it was weather. They made the right decision. You know, just when you think about it out there, when you have outdoor concerts at non-traditional concert sites, they are risky. But even you know, if you decided, well, let's do an evacuation and have people shelter in their cars, I mean, even that's not an option, given that many of them are parked at Beach 6. So, you know, I think that certainly they made the right decision. Safety is always the utmost concern, and we're working with them right now, actually, to try to assist them in any way possible of getting that date rescheduled and announced as soon as possible. Dierks Bentley, scheduling issue, and those things happen. They're unfortunate.
What do you do as an organization? Just eat the loss, or you try to reschedule?
Well, we refund all the money, and the promoter is responsible to eat the loss for all of those dollars expended prior to the show. And I think the act will help them, depending upon the nature of the cancellation and who caused the cancellation. I don't know specifically what happened between the promoter and them relative to the financial settlement regarding that, but I know that typically the promoters would be responsible in eating and absorbing all of the cost of advertising, marketing, and any other expenses they had relative to the producing of that date. We try to help them. You know, we absorb whatever. I mean, we want people to invest in the Erie community, and it's kind of like you just can't hit them over the head again. So we work together to come up with a resolution that doesn't cause them too much pain, that recovers what we can from us, but it's no out-of-pocket loss on our large out-of-pocket. We do have some time and effort and some dollars that get but you know, that's part of being a facility, and you know, when you hit a home run, you want to run the bases with them. When they strike out and they go to the dugout, you got to kind of follow that lead as well.
Does Erie Events ever look at, you mentioned non-traditional sites, do you ever take a look at doing an event or something that would operate at a non-traditional site, or do you try to stay away from that, number one, because you already have the venues, and number two, because of the potential risk?
Well, you know, I'll even call our ballpark, UPMC Park, right, in a sense, a non-traditional
and that would be an example.
Well, you look at what are the economics and what's the practicality of it, and in that instance, you really don't gain much or any additional opportunity to sell tickets because their capacities are about the same. Production costs for an outdoor show are double as to what they are for doing it indoors, and you have weather in the equation. So we don't put a lot of stuff out there because it just doesn't make sense to put up all of this risk and have no larger reward, and in fact have greater costs, because you got to bring in a stage, you got to bring in a generator, you got to do all of these things that you don't have to do in our venue that has all of those built right in. Over my career, though, I have helped, and we have helped non-traditional sites and concerts, such as the Presque Isle Partnerships. You know, we were involved in the stadium shows back in the day when Bon Jovi and Huey Lewis and the News performed out there. So, you know, I think we're a resource in the sense that, you know, we'll help where it makes sense, but it's very, very risky business. And I often have people calling saying, hey, I want to put on a concert, and I do everything I can to talk them out of it if they haven't done it before, just because I've seen it. It cannot end well, and we're not talking pennies. We're not talking dollars. We're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars, and it's not for the faint of heart, and it's not those who need to be. You need to be sufficiently capitalized, because these artists want paid up front.
I want to talk a little bit about UPMC Park, the story that ran today.
Yeah, that's one of the things I was going to bring up. There's been some questions from the Detroit Tigers about the field. You and I talked about this last week. I know you've talked to Tom Reisenweber about it. Explain what's going on with that and how that fits into a request for some additional state money to upgrade the ballpark.
Well, four or 5 years ago, we submitted, actually the city submitted on our behalf. Of course, they originally got the funding for the ballpark back in 1995. And they submitted a grant that's been in through, this is the third funding cycle that we've asked for help for UPMC Park. You know, it's although we did in 2007, we made some improvements through the support of the county of Erie. With a new scoreboard, new right field party deck, there's other components that are, you know, since 1995 have largely been untouched. And I don't mean to say that we haven't maintained them. We do what we can every year to fix, you know, ongoing concerns, but you really need an infusion of dollars, really, to bring it up to a AA standard. Right. When we opened that park in 1995, it was for single A baseball. It's AA now. AA is obviously a much higher grade of baseball than single A short season. There's a couple of rungs on the ladder actually in between. So, you know, we really need to have that reinvestment into the ballpark to fix and upgrade, really upgrade and provide additional amenities that AA ballparks now enjoy. If you stand still, you're falling behind. And we always try to have a project in the queue. We think we've delivered on all of our promises, but this year I think is so significant that we're able to, through this project, better integrate the Erie Insurance Arena with Jerry. I'm still saying Jerry. Thank you, Jerry.
I think a lot of people still do that sometimes.
No, but for graciously turning the rights over to the team that able to monetize the dollars from naming rights. It really helps solidify AA baseball here. And Jerry, it's just wonderful that he was gracious enough to do that. Long supporter of baseball. But that said, it'll provide those amenities necessary, but integrate the arena with UPMC Park, and that also will benefit the Otters to some extent, although the majority of this will benefit the Seawolves, but we really want to try to integrate the two facilities to use them year-round to benefit one another. We think the design team that put that together did an excellent job, and I just think it's so profound that both teams agreed that if this is fully funded to the $12 million, they will extend their commitment to the Erie market for an additional decade. And when you talk about quality of life, you talk about you know, the economic impact, the pride, the prestige of having AA baseball and OHL hockey for 10 years, particularly I think in support of all the Erie Downtown Development Corporation initiatives and Erie Refocused that's underway, you know, to have downtown thriving, for people to live, work, and play. You need to have other amenities, entertainment options, and opportunities in the downtown core. And having a hockey team all winter and a baseball team all summer just takes such a huge step in linking up with everything that else is happening in the downtown core. And I just think it's a fabulous project. I'm admittedly very biased about it, but I mean, just think for a moment, and I know this is going to sound ridiculous, but if the Phillies or the Eagles or the Pirates or even the Altoona Curve or the Hershey Bears or any of those professional sports franchises were talking about leaving Pennsylvania, I think it's safe to say that everybody's up in arms. Well, let's react proactively and not have to react to threats from them leaving, which isn't the case, but the commitment from a proactive standpoint of them to say, we're going to stay in your community and invest. Because the last thing we want to do is just invest $12 million and have no team to enjoy it. I mean, we want to lock them in, and we will do that. And it comes with that funding, and we're hopeful that it comes soon because you know, that may enable us to get the entire field done this fall.
Outside of that grant request, though, what is the maintenance and upkeep approach, for lack of a better term, to that field? How often do you make investments into that field? Because obviously the Tigers have big money prospects playing on this field that they expect to be in the majors someday.
We have a fabulous groundskeeping crew, and we re-turf and re-hydro-seed and build new mounds every year, redo the warning track. I mean, the list of things that are necessary to keep that at professional baseball standards is extensive. Just yesterday, I received the report from a architectural firm that tours all ballparks around the country. We get a 3-year, they're here once every 3 years, basically to do an assessment on all of the criteria to professional baseball standards. They were here this year and identified, it's a 39-page report that indicates where we're compliant, where we're close, or where we're deficient. And we go through that process every 3 years. If there's problems more often, you know, the report indicates that we have a, you know, is the field professionally maintained? Yes. There was nothing deficient about it. We have a bit of a lighting issue. So we have a couple fixtures out. We need 100-foot candles in an area. They're 97. We'll fix that. I think the mound had a slope that was a little bit different. We fixed that immediately. There's some railing that they previously said was okay, but now want it padded. We will have that fixed within a month. So we're very reactive, Kevin, and it's a constant process to
Who does
keep
that
that
assessment?
maintained. An architectural firm called Evans, and they go all around the country and do ballpark compliance reviews and surveys. Like I say, we have a great groundskeeping staff. We're putting in some protective netting. Actually, I think the net's actually being installed today. You know, we weren't told we had to do that. Baseball and the Erie Seawolves haven't expressed a concern about maybe we need some more protection. We agreed and put that in our budget last October to install, this summer. So it's ongoing, and it's like that with all of our facilities.
Coming off of that, well, are they making it any bigger? Will the ballpark be any bigger after the renovation?
It will become modestly bigger.
Okay.
There will be some additional seats. We're going to add a club level out in left field that currently doesn't exist. But the ballpark's right size for this community. The amount of times that it sells out is unfortunately not often. And to make it larger is, again, just additional inventory that will go unused. But yes, there will be some seats and some capacities added to the ballpark, but nothing dramatic. And again, we have not commissioned actual architects for the work. We did the study, and all of those will be identified, but I do not envision increasing the capacity of that ballpark, anything materially increase it, because the market demands just don't justify it.
We had a commenter earlier. This is kind of circling back around, but it's okay because we're running low on time. What can be done to stop the problem of acts canceling out their shows, or can there be anything?
Is there anything that can be done on it?
Well, I mean, obviously we had a number of cancellations. Pat Benatar was here and canceled. She was terribly ill. She could barely talk, no less sing. There was a scheduling issue with Dierks Bentley, and sometimes they cancel because they don't sell. What can we do to keep them from canceling? Well, obviously try to keep our performers healthy. We have no control over that. But again, as I alluded to earlier, having a strong, supportive market is critical for us to continue to keep what we have and attract more artists to Northwestern Pennsylvania. We need support from our fans. Hopefully we're providing the experience. Our tagline here at Erie Events is "Get up and go." In this age of social media, there's nothing like experiencing in the flesh. When you have the uncertainty of what's to happen, it's not prescribed. It's no one's seen it before. It's happening live in front of you. I don't care if it's sports or culture or music, whatever it might be. Just get up and go.
Okay.
Close it out, Kevin.
Are we out of time?
Yeah, we're all done.
Well, Casey, thanks for giving us an update, and I'm sure I'll talk to you soon about this story and a bunch of others. Thank everybody for joining us, and we're out of here.
Great. Thanks,
Thank
Kevin.
you.
Appreciate it.